What's up? I'm making another video. I'm here recording myself again. Um, Apparently one of my last recordings got corrupted, so I might have to find a process that's a little more robust than filming on photo booth on my Mac. Um, but uh, vis-a-vis, is that the saying? Vis-a-vis? I don't know French. But anyway, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna start uploading some of these. So not exactly sure what form that'll take yet. Um, Probably just gonna keep recording stuff and at some point come back and kind of edit some some clips together to make something more coherent. Although I kind of personally like the kind of like rambly uh non-linear uh style that I'm making these videos in. I kind of like the uh, jumping from point to point, jumping between tangents. Um, but I'm not sure. Like, I don't think I would ever watch a video of someone else doing that. I think it's only interesting because I can see how my own brain is making these connections, right? So, but I don't know. Anyway, tangents are something I was thinking about recently. Like, I think that's something that I need to get better at is just jumping from point to point, is kind of connecting disparate topics, because I already know how to go really deep into a subject. I know how to just go online and do endless amounts of research until I like basically figure something out, until something is a like solved problem for me. But I think there's a lot of creative potential energy in uh, like tangential thinking or lateral connection. Like they're just when you can take disparate subjects and jump through like five different things to connect the two, that's awesome. That's like not a skill. That's not a skill that a ton of people have, right? Or at least not a skill that you bump into a ton. And I think that might be because of like specialization and stuff in workforces. It's like there's no jobs that depend on you connecting six different topics. But I except for art, right? I think there's a lot of that in art that you just have to um kind of take two things, or like take one thing and then abstract it out until it's like no longer recognizable as a thing, until it's just a map, and then that map has like a bunch of symbols, a bunch of keys, right? And all those keys can lead you to a kind of world outside of the map, or like lead you to different conclusions than what the original object was. But there's still like an essence. There's still a trace of that original object in the like new map that you've now constructed out of the um, analysis and reconstruction, right? Um, so I think if I can continue working on that kind of angle of like just twist my perspective a little bit, and instead of saying like go super deep into something, just try to like skip, like throw a stone and skip across the water to the other side and try to reach something. I don't know. There's a gem there. There's a gem there. Maybe it's all a gem. It's all a gem. It's all a gem. It just affirm the whole and you'll get the gem. Um, but no, let's say there's a gem on the other side of the lake, and really you just need to skip the perfect stone to hit that gem. And then that's good. That's good that you've hit the gem. Don't question why it's good to hit the gem. It just is. My metaphor is rapidly disassembling itself. It did not make sense in the first place. But yeah, I mean, I guess I do have some hangups of uploading this kind of stuff, right? Because I I tend to be a pretty insular person, right? I tend to be pretty introverted, and uh, I like kind of keeping control over my own thoughts. I like having those in my own head. I like um, really creating a fully formed thought before communicating it to other people. And I think in that uh, there are downsides, right? Like the whole reason I started filming myself was because I I felt like my internal energy was kind of running dry, and like I needed someone else to kind of bounce my ideas off of. Um, and I don't really have that right now. Usually it would be my best friend, right? But she's away at college, and I'm not at college right now. Hopefully next semester, uh, inshallah. But I don't have that other person right now, and I think there's a lot of like opportunity in kind of bouncing your idea and just having it reflected back at you. Like obviously there's another person on that side, right? And there is a lot that comes out of um, that other person adding their own voice to the conversation, but even just having to translate your thoughts out of like brain language into like language and then hearing that I think there's a whole extra. There's already at that point at least two layers to the thing, right? To the thought now, and and that is an additive process. So if I can just kind of um, receive that bounce back of that wave, then I think that'll be helpful. And I have no reason to be thinking more. I have no reason to like there's no real impetus for me to say like, oh, I need to think more, I need to have like deeper thoughts about my own thoughts. But I just really enjoy the world of ideas, right? I enjoy the kind of pure ideation of like it's kind of even if it's detached from almost everything. I think that's when it's a lot of fun because it's never fully detached, right? All of your thoughts are still in some way influenced by the world outside of you. um, so even if you are saying like completely schizo, rambly delusions, they're still impacted. They're still formed by your experience of the world, or even how the world is from a more objective sense, right? But so there's always some value in there, and I think I'm reading a book right now, and it's talking about how forces interact to kind of uh, how drives and forces interact to kind of shape the world, and how they like a specific method or genealogical method can be used to like take a thing and then look at the forces behind it and kind of drive like uh, follow back the influence of that specific force on this thing. And I think that is really like a kind of influential thought for me, because I do believe that all of this just like pure thinking, kind of detached thinking, um, that is one way to like take your model of the world, like your model as a whole, not any specific element of it. Just take your model of the world as a whole, and then start thinking about it in different ways. Start twisting around the different elements and relating them to each other. And in that, you'll form a new thought, right? It'll be a synthesis of new, or it'll be a synthetic process taking in different elements, and you will have produced a new thought, a new recreation of your reality. But in that, if you then look at that new thought and twist it around a little more, you can more readily see the influences on it, right? Than if you just took a like I'm thinking about if you took a kind of like ideological or like let's say political thought that you had, it can be difficult to really take that and look at it and say like, okay, why do I think this way? What are my influences that have shaped my worldview to look at this? Like that's not terribly hard, but it's gonna be wrapped in so many different layers, right? Whereas if you take like a some kind of insane manosphere figure and your personal conception of like a an aesthetic or artistic framework and kind of collide those and say like, okay, let's look at Andrew Tate as if he was a purely artistic figure and everything he was doing was for 100% aesthetic value. And then you can take that new thought, of like, okay, Andrew Tate is um, like a fascinating artist of our time because he is creating really kind of wacky radical art um, that is massively influential to a generation, but also like has so many hidden biases and like is so wrapped up in its own ideas that it doesn't know what to do with itself. And then this new thought you can take and really look at and analyze and uh, more readily see how your own mind has impacted this thought rather than if you were to take the original political thought. Um, and that could just be rambling. And also the Tate thing I think I gave was a bad example because I've not like analyzed his work that closely, and that was a like on the spot belief about his art. So I'm not sure I believe that or I stand by that, but whatever. It's an example. It doesn't really matter. Um, but yeah, I think there's utility in all of this, right? Which is what I'm trying to say. I don't know. I think it's easier for me to understand stuff if I tie it back to some kind of real world use case than if I just kind of leave it floating in the world, um, which isn't necessarily better, right? It's not necessarily better that something has a use case than it doesn't have a use case, but it's easier for me to relate to, I think. Um, yeah, my screen uh, blacked out for a second while I was making that video, so I'm gonna stop this one and make sure it's still recording, and then uh, start a new one. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to do this whole ramble, whole amble over again. Yeah, we're good. It was still recording. But yeah, I think this might be a good introductory video, a good first video to put out on my channel. Just because it does kind of dance around a lot of concepts that are kind of influencing me to make this channel, right? Um, and also there's just like not a ton of dead space. There's not a lot of dead air, so I think it's a more accessible. I am realizing that I am a new influence is obviously going to be the YouTube videos that I've watched. Even if I don't, even if I say I don't care about really having people watch this, and like that's even a little weird of an experience. A little that experience would be a little bit weird to have people watching this as their entertainment. Like that's a kind of inherently odd idea to me, but but that's still an influence on how I feel a YouTube video should be, right? Like I'm not gonna put out a video where I say 3 words in 10 minutes. Like that's just not gonna be a piece of art or a piece of media that I end up creating and feeling comfortable putting out in the world, um, which is interesting because I don't know why. Like it doesn't really hurt anyone, right? It takes up like one is what's the opposite of like a zettabyte, like a 1 micro zettabyte of data in comparison to the rest of like YouTube's infinite infrastructure, right? But uh, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll give a little bit of background about myself if I'm putting this up in the video, so uh, at least that's out there, right? So my name's Elena. Uh, Pronouns she, her. I'm trans. I went to Portland State University for 1 semester, and I'm hoping to return there as soon as possible. But I have like I kind of dropped out because I have like just sudden onset anhedonia that I can't link back to anything, and I've been through like multiple therapies and like 7 different medications at this point. I'm on modafinil now, which is helping. It's at least helping my like it's so much easier to talk than it was before. Like I feel like it's a social lubricant in that way. Which is funny because that's what you always hear about cokeheads, right? Is that they can just kind of like motor mouth about anything for 30 minutes straight. So maybe I'll get off of that, get off this med, and then uh, we'll uh, we'll never speak a word online again. Um, but until then, it's helped a bit. I'd say it's helped with like overall energy and mental fatigue, exhaustion, right? Um, but yeah, I really would like to end up going back to school sooner rather than later. I spent my first semester majoring in computer science, which I have kind of a background in, a background in coding and stuff. But I, at this point, it's been like almost a year of me being out of school. And at this point, I think I will probably change my major to something in the like chemistry or neurobiology or pharmacology uh, sphere. Um, just because I've been doing a lot of like deep dive into that for just like personal trying to figure out what's wrong with me, and I've found that stuff very engaging, right? So I think just like kind of take a point my lens in a new direction and see what light I pick up there, because I've spent a lot of my life coding and being in that kind of world. So it's nice to have a background in something, right? Don't get me wrong, but it is always also very fun to kind of shift your perspective a little bit, and see what new wavelengths you can pick up, which is also why I'm doing this, right? So I think like trial and error and exploration are things that I value pretty highly at this point in my life, which I'm sure will change as I grow older and kind of like settle into something a little more, right? But I don't know. Um, but until then, why not just keep exploring, keep doing new stuff, right? I've been reading a bunch of books, a bunch of philosophy that has um, been in that vein of just like trying something new, of kind of engaging in it's also very fun because it's just ideas, right? You're just engaging in the world of ideas, um, which is which is right up my alley, I'll say. Um, but when you're reading philosophy, there that comes with an odd downside of not being able to name any of the books. Uh, if you don't want to sound like a tool, right? I can't say that I'm reading so and so book without, like, if I make an appeal to Kant, that's dumb, right? Like that sounds um, like I'm a a college student who doesn't know what they're talking about studying Kant, right? And that's not a good look, sweetie. So um, I'll I'll stay away from that. But there are probably some ideas that I will want to tool around within my head. So yeah, you know what? I will call this video here. I'll come up with a good name for my channel, and uh, I'll I will upload this later today. So um, yeah, see you later.